Have you ever felt like you're just the human glue between all your apps? You're copying something from your project manager, pasting it into your invoice tool, then grabbing a link and dropping it into Slack? It is such a time waster. Well, what if I told you that for some of the most popular apps we all use, that whole era of tedious manual work it's officially over? Let's dive into how this automation revolution is literally changing everything. This quote from productivity expert Dmitry Panachy just hits the nail on the head. For the longest time, there was this fundamental limit that kept our favorite tools from talking to each other in real time. And now, that barrier has been completely shattered. What used to be the slow, delayed process has suddenly become instant. So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll start with the core problem, that digital dilemma we all know and love. Then, we'll pull back the curtain on the tech that lets our apps actually talk. We'll compare the old way versus the new way, see it in action with some amazing real-world workflows, and finally, we'll zoom out to look at the massive connected ecosystem that this has all unlocked. All right, let's kick things off with the problem itself, the workspace dilemma. We've got all these incredible, super powerful apps, right? But so often they feel like they're in different rooms, completely unable to hear each other. And this digital silence, well, it's the root cause of so much wasted time and effort. And what's the result of that? We're just drowning in browser tabs, we're constantly copying and pasting the same information over and over, and our data is scattered across a dozen different places. I mean, this isn't just inefficient, it's a huge source of friction and mistakes in our day-to-day work. It's kind of like having a workshop full of amazing tools that all need different incompatible batteries. So, how do we fix this? How do we finally get these apps to talk to each other seamlessly? Well, it's not magic, but honestly, it's pretty close. Let's get into the two key pieces of tech that make this whole thing possible. Okay, first up is the API. That stands for Application Programming Interface. The absolute best way to think about an API is like a restaurant menu. It gives another app a clear, structured list of what it can order. What data it can ask for or what actions it can tell the app to do. It's the official, proper way for programs to talk to each other. But here is the real game changer, the webhook. So if an API is a menu that you have to keep looking at to see if there's anything new, a webhook is like a doorbell. Instead of your app having to constantly ask another app, hey, anything new? How about now? Anything yet? The first app just rings the doorbell of the second app the instant something happens. This is a huge shift from asking for updates to being told about them in real time. And that difference, that little distinction between asking and being told, it's everything. It is a massive shift in how automation actually works. So let's put these two methods side by side, because you really need to see how dramatic the difference is. So the old way, which just relies on APIs, is called pulling. And as you can see on the left, an automation tool like Zapier would have to check in with an app like Notion every 5, 10, sometimes even 15 minutes, just to ask if anything had changed. It's clunky, and most importantly, it's slow. But the new way, with webhooks, that's on the right. The very moment you press a button or update a page, Notion sends an instant signal. The automation doesn't wait, it kicks off immediately. The result is automation that feels truly, genuinely instantaneous. Okay, theory is great and all, but let's actually see this stuff out in the wild. How does this technology come together to build these powerful, time-saving workflows that you can actually use every single day? Let's use a classic example that almost every freelancer or small business deals with: invoicing. So imagine you just finished a project you were tracking in Notion. The old way, you'd have to go over to Stripe or PayPal, manually create the invoice, copy the link, go back to Notion, and paste it in. Not anymore. Now check this out. You're in your Notion project page, and you press one single button. That click instantly triggers a webhook. An automation tool in the background creates the invoice in Stripe. It then grabs the new invoice ID and the URL and automatically puts it right back onto the Notion page you started from. And hey, just for good measure, it pings your finance channel in Slack to let them know. All of that from one click in just a few seconds. And the impact of this is not small. We're not talking about saving a few seconds here and there. Dmitry Panachy, who actually built that workflow, said it's going to save him and his team hours saved per week and hours a month. Now think about that. When you scale that across all the little repetitive tasks you do, the time savings become absolutely massive. This isn't just a tiny tweak, it's a force multiplier for your productivity. And hey, Invoicing is just the beginning. You gotta think bigger. You could automatically create an entire project structure. I'm talking subtasks, Google Drive folders, the whole shebang, the moment you add a new client. Or, with just one click in your meeting notes, you could send a new idea straight to your content calendar, already formatted. You could even use a webhook to send a topic to ChatGPT and have it automatically populate your Notion page with a list of AI-generated titles. Wild, right? Now, as exciting as all this is for one app like Notion, it is so important to understand that this is part of a much, much bigger trend. We are fundamentally moving away from our apps being these lonely, siloed things and toward a deeply interconnected ecosystem of software. I mean, just look at the scale of this. Notion, by itself, can embed content from over 1,900 different domains. Then you have these middleware platforms like Zapier, which are basically universal translators, connecting over 5,000 different apps. This is what allows other tools like Approve-It to plug into this massive ecosystem. And then on the really high end, you have platforms like Alteryx that offer a full suite of API endpoints for super deep custom integrations. You can really see the whole spectrum of connection here. On one end, you've got a really simple but clever feature, like Workflowy's Email to Workflowy, which just lets you create list items by sending an email. In the middle, you've got Notion, which now has this really powerful combo of a traditional API and these new instant webhooks. And then, of course, you have the huge hubs like Zapier and the enterprise-level platforms like Alteryx. They all have a part to play in this connected world. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's this. We have to stop thinking of our apps as individual islands. They're not anymore. They're becoming building blocks, powerful, specialized parts that we can wire together to create custom systems that are perfectly tailored to exactly how we want to work. It's a complete paradigm shift. So, I'll leave you with this question. As you go through your day, just start to notice all the times you find yourself copying and pasting, or switching tabs, or doing the same multi-step process over and over and over again. And then ask yourself, what is that one task, that one annoying thing you wish you could just automate away with a single click? Because the chances are, with this automation revolution, you finally can.